The Profit Constructors presents Construction Junction, the junction between accounting and construction. Today's episode is brought to you by Adaptive.
Well, thank you and welcome back to this next edition of our Construction Junction podcast. My name is Tanya Schulte. I'm super excited to be your host today. Every once in a while, a piece of software or an app comes along that just kind of makes you wonder, why hasn't this been here all along? And honestly, I've been looking for this app for the last several years that we've been growing this business. And I've been asking so many people, why aren't we building this particular app and serving this particular industry? Which, as you guys know, if you've ever listened to this podcast, it's clearly the Construction Junction podcast. And so the industry that we're talking about is obviously the construction sector. But the app that I've been looking for so many years is an app that would specifically serve the accounts payable needs of our construction clients. And if you've done anything at all in construction and you understand anything at all about job costing and the collection of bills and receipts in the construction industry, you know that that can be just a manual, labor-intensive task to get all of this data in the right place, to make sure that it's being job costed to the right jobs, to make sure that the approvals are happening the way that they should, that everyone that needs to have their eyes on these bills can get their eyes on the bills and be able to give their input and feedback as to whether those bills are correct, whether those bills are ready to be paid. There's just so much that can go into an accounts payable workflow from start to finish that I've been asking for this need to be filled for years. I'm not an app developer and I didn't have the means or ability to do it. And so I was so excited when I stumbled across this app that we're going to be talking to today. It's called Adaptive. And what's exciting about Adaptive is that they're working very hard, strenuously, you might say, to solve this accounts payable problem for us and for our clients, to help us automate this more and more. But what's even more exciting is that they are intending to build beyond the accounts payable space. They want to do more than just accounts payable. But I can't tell you how grateful I am that the first solution they're offering to this industry is accounts payable, that job costing side, the ability to have the approvals go through, and the ability to just automate bill payment. It's something that so many other industries have fairly simple access to, but this industry hasn't really had a solution that's worked well for them. And this is the time to bring that solution forward. So I'm very excited to be sharing Adaptive with you today and to be talking to our guests that are on today to talk to you about Adaptive, about accounts payable in the construction industry, and about where Adaptive sees this industry growing and how they would like to grow with it. So without further ado, other than one quick break, let's take that quick break and we'll come right back and talk with the Adaptive folks.
If you would like to share your company or product on the Construction Junction, please email hello@theprofitconstructors.com.
Welcome back. I'm so excited to be being joined by the Adaptive guys, Frank and Matt from Adaptive. As I said in our first segment, Adaptive has built something that I've been looking for at least 7 years and trying to find. So I'm super excited to have you guys on here today and tell us what you've already built and where you guys are going. Matt, I'm actually going to throw it out to you first. Tell us kind of like the origin story of Adaptive, what it is and why you guys created it.
Yeah, so I would say that Adaptive, kind of if we had to summarize it, is we're trying to take the latest in artificial intelligence, kind of better designed software, and some smart workflows to automate the process around accounts payable and accounts receivable, specifically for construction companies. What we observed is there's just a lot of paperwork and a lot of manual data entry required in the industry, right? If you're kind of managing a construction business, that's the name of the game, and companies are spending a lot of time on that. And so we're really trying to help cut down all the time people spend there. The origin story, actually, with our guest we'll hear from later today, Scott, we can kind of go back to July of 2021. Francisco and I had just graduated from Stanford Business School with our third co-founder, Henry, and we wanted to work on a software idea in the home building kind of construction industry generally. And Scott was one of our first customers, actually. And we were working with him and a few others in Austin on a different problem in the industry. We're actually working on software for kind of like how you go out and acquire land and lot. Through that experience and through talking with a number of both, general contractors and subcontractors in Austin, started to observe that bookkeeping was actually a pretty large problem for this industry. And we saw that both in observing like hands-on how much time people were spending, as well as when we were trying to help a few contractors obtain financing. And part of the requirement was you had to prove your historical projects were profitable. And that was quite hard to do for a number of companies.
Yeah.
So we thought this was an interesting problem to solve. We felt like there was a lot of advances in technology recently that could help you build a really smart, interesting product. And the first thing we did to get started is we just opened up a bookkeeping firm kind of in Austin and secured a few customers, learned the ins and outs. And then we raised some money from a venture capital firm in April to build software. And I let Frank talk a little bit about the current product today.
Yeah, Frank, tell us, what have you guys built?
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, the entire genesis of our business was trying to better understand and fully enmesh ourselves in the complex but manual workflows that are required to keep up the financials and back office of a construction company, taking the most onerous, time-consuming aspects of those workflows and kind of data entry processes and automate them using software. And so our approach to that has been most to start our kind of software development process by focusing on the accounts payable, as I mentioned. So what our product does, it's kind of an all-in-one management solution for you and your construction company to manage all aspects of the money that you owe and that you've spent. And so what that means in process is, of course, you can do everything from upload bills, which we use OCR and AI to extract all the data from each of your bills and then automatically attach them to the correct cost code and then work with you to job cost them and then push them through an approval process that you can set based around like amount or vendor or cost code, whatever makes the most sense for you and your business. You can move those through an approval workflow and ultimately pay your bills from the platform. But not only that, you can manage all other aspects of your back office that go into the approval workflows that you need to have in order to actually pay those bills. So that means tracking your vendor compliance on our platform, getting alerts when vendor compliance documents are out of date or they're expired. You can add people to your organization and provide different permission levels to them. You can sync everything with QuickBooks, so you don't have to do double entry, and that's both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. You can view a live view of all of your jobs and the costs associated with them, broken out by cost code and by job. You can assign people to jobs and differentiate different levels of permissioning and workflows based around the people who are assigned to a job. You can basically do everything that's necessary to ensure that when money is leaving your bank account, you know exactly where it's going. The right people have signed off on it, and it's all moving through to your accounting software and to your budgets to keep those up to date.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's both for bills and expenses, I should say. So both your bills and the receipts that you collect for kind of just random expenses that your folks might make in the field.
Love it. I mentioned in the first segment that I feel like there's been a lot of solutions and sort of automation around bill pay available fairly easily for a lot of other sectors.
Mm-hmm.
But really, for like I said, since we started building this business, I've been around trying to find someone who is building this for the construction industry. So Frank, can you kind of speak to that too? Like what makes this, particularly valuable and helpful in the construction industry? Because there are competitors out there that'll pay your bills all day long. You can do automated bill pay, but they don't work in some senses and in most ways for the construction industry, especially when it comes to like job costing. I think making sure that everything is put towards the right job, but also making sure that the right people that need to approve can make those approvals, because it's something that's very unique that happens in the construction industry.
Yeah, I think early on when we were managing our own little bookkeeping business with a few initial customers, we found that one of the biggest pain points in time and pieces, the thing that is taking up a ton of time for bookkeepers and then construction financial professionals just writ large is just trying to collect all the information necessary to ensure that every single dollar you spend maps back correctly to the right budget and to the right place in your budget.
Yes.
So that's a form of basically information exchange. Right now, a lot of people manage that by like spending a bunch of time on the phone or on email or texting various folks in the field, ranging from your supers to your project managers to your accountants, to get everything in order and to make sure that every single cost is mapped to the right place in your accounting software and to your budgets. So the first thing that we did when we set out to build the software is, one, of course, just make it cloud-based and make it mobile. So you can access the platform from anywhere, no matter who you are within the organization, within the permission levels that your manager sets. The second thing that we did was start establishing a unique permissioning structure and a unique approval workflows that you and your organization can set and customize for your organization. So, for example, if you want to make sure that Matt approves a bill, and then Tanya approves a bill, and then Scott approves a bill in that order for a certain job, you can do that. You can do that by cost code, you can do that by amount, you can do that by job, and soon you'll be able to do that by vendor as well. The idea, of course, being that every construction company has its own approval workflows and various people that need to sign off on a bill or a receipt before it can ultimately be pushed through accounting software. You can facilitate that all on the platform. The second thing we built was, of course, an internal commenting system so that you can exchange all the information you need in the threaded comment box within each bill and expense. So that anyone who wants to exchange information about that, ranging from what job it was for to whether the work it was done to the cost code that needs to be reassigned to, can do so directly on the platform. The third thing is, of course, it's like everything needs to be mapped back to your budget. And so that requires that you have, products and services and cost codes on our platform. That's something that I think a lot of kind of just generic spend management platforms lack, the ability to pull in your cost codes from your accounting software, maintain them in our software, and then ultimately make sure that every bill and expense maps correctly to that cost code. Which goes to our kind of fourth thing, which is the automation side of things. So we find that a lot of people are spending tons and tons and tons of time clicking all these different drop-down menus in QuickBooks or whatever their accounting software is for every single bill. They have to select the job, they select the cost code, they select the class. They have to select any number of drop-downs for every single bill. It takes like 6 to 10 minutes per bill to the job cost to bill correctly and get it input into QuickBooks. Our software mostly does that automatically for you. And so the fact that we really focus on automating the actual job costing and attaching things to the correct cost code, I think is what sets our software a little bit apart from some of the other spend management platforms that may exist. And then, lastly, just the fact that this is a project-based industry. And, in order to make sure that at any given time on our platform, you can see exactly where you are with each of your projects and your spend, broken up by cost code, be able to click into those cost codes, being able to view every single transaction that hit that budget and that particular cost code within that budget, and even export those transactions with backups. You can use images of every single invoice or receipt that you have paid for that particular cost code in seconds. That is another thing I think that we really focus on. So it's all based around like information exchange, time savings, and automation. That's kind of how we focused our products direction.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And for either of you guys that wants to answer, how do you, having brought this now to the market and you have clients that are using this, what is the biggest impact that you see? The number one thing that you guys kind of see that's helping construction businesses to be better?
Yeah, I would say, so I can take that one. I would say there's three things that generally people get really excited about. The first would be time saving, which is obviously cost as well, right? I mean, if you're paying for someone to do all this data entry, that's like a lot of time and money spent on this over the course of the year. So to give you an example of like time saving, one of our customers, actually Scott, he has someone who works in the office and handles a lot of the bill pay, told us that their check run has been reduced from, which happens twice a month, 3 days to 3 hours. So previously something that took them 3 days to get through all their AP is now being done in 3 hours. That's 6 days per month down to 6 hours per month. So that gets people really excited. You can think about the cost savings there depending on how much, per hour cost that is. The second thing would be mistakes. So one of the things our platform does is help you avoid paying people twice or forgetting to kind of invoice for something, especially if you're a cost plus builder. A couple of our customers have told us in the past fairly often that they'll get duplicate bills from vendors, and we will flag that for them, based on the vendor, the number, et cetera. So avoiding mistakes around money in, money out. Obviously, it's very important you control your cash flow in construction. So the first is kind of time saving, second, avoiding mistakes. And then the third is particularly for owners, just better visibility into your business. So kind of as Frank was talking about, you can search all your historical spend on the platform, and we'll organize everything for you by job. So you can go into the job, see your budgets updated in real time, see that from your phone, see that from anywhere, and start to have a much better pulse of what's happening in your business. So I'd say those are the three things that get people really excited.
I think that's a great point. I want to kind of dive in a little bit on that, because you mentioned earlier that sort of the background of why you guys started this is you were trying to help people, go to the bank and get lending, be able to finance things. And oftentimes that's when people come to us at the Profit Constructors the first time too, right? They're like, the bank asked us for something called a WIP report. We don't even know what that is. Can you help? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the great thing that we have found, and I can see this being so exciting about Adaptive and your platform, is you go to the bank and they need a WIP report. So you go and find someone that can help you create a WIP report. But the more that you're actually then utilizing budgets and real, like, time sensitive job costing, like real time job costing, the more that actually helps you to manage your business day to day. Like, it's not just something that you want to have at the end of the year if the auditor requires it, if the IRS requires it, if the bank requires it. It's something that's really helpful in the day-to-day management of your business, knowing what you budgeted for a job and are your costs lining up with that budget.
100%. Yeah. I mean, on that point, I would say one of the things we've heard frequently from our customers is, or a lot of the, I would say some customers and some just builders we've met along the way, is that they'll rarely know whether a project is profitable until the end, right? Yeah. Obviously, if you're kind of waiting to the end to see if something's profitable, you can run into a lot of cash crunches unexpectedly. And so there's that aspect of things, cash flow management, which is kind of like here and now, something you want to stay on top of. The second thing, which I'm sure you help a lot of your customers with, is really understanding which types of projects you work on are profitable and why, right? If you have all of that organized in a system, we can go back and do research. One of the things that Tanya suggested and we're building into our platform is the ability to assign a class code, so you can look at your certain types of jobs you've done, remodeling jobs, new homes, etc. That gives you visibility into like forecasting going forward. Hey, I'm a company. I have a certain types of projects I can take on. Which ones do I want to focus on? Presumably, you should focus on the ones that are most profitable. So those are two things that I think we're really trying to help facilitate with the platform.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I'm super excited that you guys are building out that class feature. It's something, again, that we help our clients do quite a bit. It's, there's the ability when you're doing something like that, you have the ability then to determine not only which ones are more profitable, but also kind of get a feel for the pulse of the business. One of the things that we're recently helping our clients do is kind of recession prep. So it's not necessarily that you want to just keep a certain type of business. During COVID, some of our clients found that only their service-based work was what they could go out and do. Some of their new construction jobs got shut down, right? So, but understanding more about how their service business worked, because they had all the data in the system, helped them to really plan for that. So it's just helpful to have the right data at your fingertips. And I'm really excited that you guys are building that out. What would you say would be like the number one reason that you see people coming to your platform and wanting to use it?
It's a great question. I think that ultimately, what we see a lot are folks who keep all of their accounting records in QuickBooks, but find QuickBooks lacking as a layer where they can effectively job cost and report in a way that is built for their business. QuickBooks remains, a dominant player in construction, yet it's obviously not built for construction. And so all the things that we try to build out early on, again, like I mentioned, around like exchanging information between various members of your team, or having really unique customizable approval workflows where bills and expenses are routed automatically to the right people based on the conditions that you set. Or being able to have, multiple people interacting with a layer that's above your accounting software, but in a way where they're not actually affecting your accounting record, is something that I think that the industry is really, really looking for. I also think that there's kind of, just like as an aside, there's kind of this idea that construction companies aren't willing to kind of use or adopt new software, new technologies. And I think that what our approach is said is not that construction companies aren't willing to do that, but they're just not willing to adopt bad software. I think that they have extremely high standards, and they don't want to use loaded software that requires months of onboarding before you get any value from it, or that has these wild upfront fees that make you buy into it before you get any value out of it. And I think that's unfortunately the status quo in the industry. It's software that makes you change how you run your business in order to use it, not software that makes running your business easier. And so we see often like software that takes someone in a construction company weeks to learn to get any value out of it. They require, consulting from the software company themselves to teach them how to use the software. And we take a wildly different approach, which is that we want to build software that provides you value the moment you start using it, that doesn't require weeks of onboarding, that requires minutes of onboarding, where you can immediately understand everywhere in the software that you need to interact with in order to get, the basic process done of automating your accounts payable and your expenses, and ultimately your budget and your invoicing as well. And we think that the industry is extremely eager to try kind of cutting edge software that does actually solve their problems right out the gate, and cuts down on all this wasted time and resources that goes into managing all this manual data entry. So I think that what we've seen people are looking for is like, what is something that I can have sit above QuickBooks that prevents people from editing time a record directly, that provides a super seamless way for me to kind of accomplish the basic facet of saving me time and money, but without a ton of overhead, expenditure and time wasting in terms of onboarding and learning how to use it.
Yeah, I think to your point, I totally agree that this is definitely an industry that are straight shooters, right? They know what they need to do to get out and get the work done, and they just want the software that they're using to be able to help them accomplish that goal, and get out and get the work done. So that is absolutely the industry to a T that you've just described. And I love it. It's an industry that I've always worked in, and I love that aspect of it, that you're just going to get what you get with these construction folks. And they, another point that you brought up too, Frank, that I think that they appreciate, QuickBooks, Intuit has done a lot of really good work at building up name recognition. And a lot of people do have used QuickBooks for years for their construction companies, and they've used it well. It hasn't been any reason for them not to use it. But at the same time, one of the points that we've made here on the Construction Junction podcast and with the Profit Constructors for years is that by adding on really good, well thought out software like Adaptive, you can make QuickBooks even better, right? So you have like your accounting software that does its job really well, just needs to do the accounting.
Yeah.
But add on the apps that do the other aspects that your construction company needs, that you don't need to ask QuickBooks to do. It's not what they do best. So we'll just let them do what they do best, and let's find the other apps that will help QuickBooks function even better and make your construction company function better because you have that automation working in the background for you. All right, let's take a quick break because I really am now excited to talk to someone who's actually using Adaptive to get some feedback from your client that you guys have brought to you today. His name is Scott. So let's talk with him in just a few minutes. We'll be right back.
Automate your job costing and control your cash flow with Adaptive. We use AI and simple software that will integrate with the accounting and project management software you already use.
Welcome back. We're still here with Frank and Matt from Adaptive, and joining us as well is a user of Adaptive, Scott with Riverside Homes in Austin, Texas. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Tanya.
So glad to have you here with us today. Frank and Matt said that you were actually one of their first customers. How did you hear about Adaptive, and how did you come to work with these guys?
Well, as I think they mentioned, they actually started out trying to meet a different need in the world of construction and development, and so that's how I met them in terms of a data tool, really. But in getting to know them, they really went out of their way to try and understand how my business worked, and I think figured out pretty quickly that the paper check method that we've used for decades in construction as to how we pay our vendors and so on, it could really use some help, right? And but I think part of the reason why we as an industry, certainly as a small builder, right, we do 8 to 12 houses a year. I'm a small company, so I can't afford. I don't have a team of accountants here working to do all of my billing for starters. but also the simple fact is it's other people's money that we deal with, right? And it's a lot of it. So our books are really the core of our business, right? And Tanya, I'm sure you encounter this with your clients, right? The idea of our book somehow going bad or wrong is stuff that would keep any builder up at night.
Yeah.
So in talking with them about these solutions, obviously there's so much that can be done with automation now in terms of document management. So that immediately, made me light up, that being able to process paperwork automatically, scan an invoice or a vendor sends an invoice in via email and it automatically gets cost coded, assigned to the vendor and assigned to the job and then, sort of processed for approval without having to touch a piece of paper really is a huge time saver. That alone is fantastic.
I love it. I want to highlight something that you said, Scott, that I think is so important because we've talked a lot, Matt and Frank and I, about understanding your budgets and job profitability. But something that especially I think home builders face, because you mentioned this, you're dealing with other people's money. And it can be very, very tempting to sort of get into the habit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? To take funds from one project and go ahead and pay a vendor on a different project. That can be very, very tempting, or it can even just be simple and easy to do because you don't have the data to back up how much funds are available on any particular project. So Matt, Frank, I love that from that perspective, you guys can really help solve that issue as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think that builders kind of not having a clear view into the cash flow, where their money's going, remains an immense problem. One that can lead to catastrophe. I mean, there are builders who have made, some wrong short-term financial decisions, not because they meant, to do so necessarily, not because they were trying to, move money from one project to another, simply because they had no insights into where their money has gone, how much money they made, whether they were over or under billed, nothing along those lines. And I think having something that was immediately available in real time, automatically updated to show you, here's exactly how much you spent, here's exactly how much you've made, and here's exactly what your QuickBooks balance is at any given time for a project, broken out by project, and even viewed by cost code, is incredibly important. Because then builders who are just trying to do what they do best, which is build houses and do it profitably, can see at any given time, am I making money or am I not? And where, if I am losing money, am I losing money and why?
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, you also talked about, the time savings, having all of this be automated. And I think Matt brought up earlier, it's your business where you were having someone basically spending like 3 days per check run. Been there, done that. Absolutely know how that goes, trying to track down everything, trying to make sure that you have everything in the right place. Back in my day, we used to have the big stamps, right? Right? Okay, now it's going to go from one person's desk to another person's desk, to another person. We're taking all of that and moving it all into one cloud-based, mobile-based software, right? And everyone has access now to that piece of paper. Everyone can see who's made the approval. Everyone can see where it was cost coded and is that correct or not, right? It's not just like, hey, is that piece of paper on Sally's desk? Did it get to Mark's? I don't know where it's at, right? So I absolutely love the time savings that this introduces. How has that impacted your business, and where has that time been able to be better spent?
Well, I'll start by saying that the smaller the business, the more important our time is, right? And unfortunately, it also means that the smaller the business, the less time you have and less likely you are to be really rigid about how you manage your time, right? The phone rings, you got a problem on a job site, you got to go deal with that. And that's the nature of our business. So being able to automate and digitize all these documents that have to do with how we pay a vendor on a given job is immense, because as I was telling the guys early on, the fat thumb thing is real in construction, right? So if you're sitting in a truck waiting for somebody to show up, and you can use your mobile phone to pull up, review, and approve invoices, make comments, and really do that in a way that is accurate and obviously involves your entire company all at once, is really powerful, right? So the guy in the truck can actually do some productive accounting while sitting in the truck, which normally has never been the case for QuickBooks, right? So I just love that about it. So it'll free up time across the board for our entire industry Your comment about the stamps is funny. We still have a stamp somewhere in the office with our cost code, the little blanks, you'd stamp it and then it would start shuffling around the office, who's got it. But I want to point out something that I think is important to note here, and that is, and this is why I think these sort of automated bill pay services really don't offer a whole lot of value to the construction industry, right? Yes, it's nice if they could get their money a little faster. Every sub I've ever talked to would love to get paid faster, but sometimes there's discrepancies in billing. Sometimes you're holding back a certain amount. Sometimes they bill too much. All these things happen in construction routinely, and there has to be a way to flag that invoice and say, pay this much, keep this out, here's why, and have that data, that comment persist over the course of the job, and then you can look back on it at the end and see what happened. So, but it's not just at the end; it's real time. That's the real benefit. Is that it is shocking to say this, and I didn't really realize it until I started working with the adaptive guys. At any given time, I don't think there are very few builders in the country who could really tell you exactly where they were in terms of a P&L halfway through a project, right? You're done with rough ends. How's your margin so far, right? I can't answer that without jumping through a whole lot of hoops exporting out of QuickBooks, right? And so I don't do that. And I think they really hit on something there. Francisco just a minute ago said, hey, that problem, right, leads to poor decisions. They aren't necessarily anybody's fault. You just didn't know you were upside down on sheetrock yet, right? And you need to know that. So I think it really does meet a critical cost management need for us in a way that just hasn't been done before.
Yeah, and I loved something that you said, which I hadn't even really thought about until you brought it up, Scott, which is, it's saving your back office bookkeeper 3 days. It's also saving all that time that we are often adding back into the labor burden of the project manager having to come back to the office, or maybe taking it home, spending less time with his wife and kids because he's having to sit there and go through all the things that the bookkeeper sent him and ask questions about and do all those extra things aside from being on the job site all day, right? And so I absolutely love that time savings aspect of it as well. One of the things that we're all about at the Profit Constructors is helping small business owners and their employees get their time back so that they can actually spend it in ways that are either more productive or ways with their families, right? Like that's so important to have that time back so that you're not just stuck doing paperwork until 9 o'clock at night. I absolutely love that. Matt and Frank, what are your plans going forward for how you're going to automate even more so that we can give these guys more time back?
Yeah, I can take that one. So, one of the other things, your question earlier on why other bill pay solutions don't work super well for construction. I think Frank hit on some of the points around the industry's field-based, so it has to be mobile, job costing, compliance, et cetera. Another element of construction that people don't necessarily take into account is oftentimes your accounts receivable is tied to your accounts payable. So if you're a time and materials biller, or if you're a cost plus builder, your revenue is all your costs times your markup or plus your markup. So naturally, something that we want to do is we're already helping on the AP side. Let's take that and seamlessly turn it into your accounts receivable, where, in the next few months, we're building this in. You can go into your job, select your billing period, take all the spend you have, compile it into a backup, and create an invoice very simply and send it off to your client. At that point, we kind of start to have both money out and money in one platform. It can do really interesting reporting, WIP, et cetera. So I think that's where we're headed. That's what we're really excited about.
I know I'm very excited about that. It looks like you are too, Scott.
Yeah, I think anybody who all the really high end cost plus guys, right? Those are such an administrative burden that I think smaller firms just don't realize how much accounting is involved in cost plus in terms of documentation and so on. Well, this really turns that into a snap, right? So I think he's right. There's really just a need for improvement in our APAR, construction APAR world. And I just like the fact that essentially this is scalable, right? Regardless of whether your company does, 20, 30, 40 homes a year or 4 huge ones or or you're just a remodeler trying to figure out if you made any money, right, on a job sometimes, it can do that for everyone, and it's just, works with QuickBooks, so you never have to learn a new accounting software.
Yeah, this is great. I think too, one of the things like in terms of the cost plus thing, we all saw it with materials, the price of materials just rising and rising and rising. Some of our clients that were locked into fixed price contracts got themselves into a real nightmare there as well, right? So I think cost plus is definitely, we see more and more of our clients turning that as their best way to bill out with their clients. And so it's here, it's always been here, but it's definitely growing, I think, in terms of that cost plus need. And so what you guys are building on that side is great. I think another thing that no automated bill payment software has thought of or tried to solve for, Matt, that you guys are solving for, is making sure that you have the right certificates of insurance on file. That's not something that someone in manufacturing or retail needs to worry about, right? But do you have all the documentation on file before you pay that vendor so that you're not going to be coming back on insurance audits, or, when we need to send out 1099s at the end of the year? Like, do you have all of the right documentation on file before you pay a vendor? You guys are solving for that as well.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, that was one of the, to your point of like stamps and, paper, et cetera. Scott was pretty advanced. He actually has an Excel sheet to keep track of all his vendor COIs. So, Scott was a little bit more advanced on that front, but we definitely observed early on that, you're getting a bill in email, you're passing paper on the office, you're deciding to pay, and then you have to open up separately your Excel sheet and look at your vendor and say, okay, certificate of insurance, is it expired? All right, where's the actual document? Now I need to email them and ask them for a new one. It seems pretty logical just to build it into the bill pay flow. So we're working on that as well.
Yeah. Again, this is something that I've been saying for the last 7 years. No one's really tackling this industry, and it's an industry that, builders are everywhere. There's so many people that need this software and no one was building it. So I'm just super excited that Adaptive is building it. Scott, what other benefits would you like to see Adaptive build out? What are some things that you'd like to see it grow into?
I think there's really, similar to just strictly, cost management, it's budgeting and estimating, right? So the day when we can get some metrics out of our numbers, right? Cost per foot, quantity comparisons, things like that, right? So you really can integrate estimating, which isn't just something you enter into QuickBooks to track your costs, but really your takeoffs and everything else. That can all be a seamless path through the software here. And that's, again, really robust and again, relatively easy to do because it's being built for builders, like it's designed for our industry in a way that I don't know exists anywhere else without a whole lot of extra, time and effort and learning curve there. So I'm excited about seeing what it can do for my budgeting, my forecasting, and so on moving forward.
Great feedback. Something that you said, Scott, made me think of a quote that I just read. It was either yesterday or the day before about software designers, which said, designers often design what they can, not what's necessary, right? And I think this is one of the things I love about the Adaptive team is that they're going to folks like you, Scott, and they're coming to folks like us that serve the industry and asking what's really necessary. Not just what can we build, but what does the industry need to be built? So I think that's a great feedback, like that budgeting and estimating piece, being able to put everything seamlessly through one piece of software, and not just building it out the way that you guys just could go and build it, but coming to the folks that need it and saying, what is it that you guys need? Okay, let's find a way to go and build that. And I think that just kudos to you guys for doing that.
Yeah, Tanya, it's interesting you bring that up because we have made some product decisions that have definitely been harder for us to build, but we heard pretty conclusively from the folks we wanted to serve that it was critical that we do so. So, for example, one thing that would make our jobs a lot easier is if every single invoice that was submitted to our platform was standardized. So if it was all in the exact same format, you could easily pull all the information from our end. You wouldn't have to have a lot of AI and ML involved in the platform. It would be something we could just automatically extract all the data with very little technological lift. And there are other platforms that do it that just say we are a bill management platform, but in order to use our platform, every one of your subs and vendors has to get on board the platform, submit all their information in the exact same format, and that makes our lives easier as a software developer. We've taken a little bit of a different approach. We say we're going to invest a lot of time and a lot of resources in ensuring that no matter how your subs bill you, how your vendors bill you, our software will be able to read it with good accuracy, which is to say that if they're submitting handwritten pieces of invoices because it's a small, painter in his truck who's just sending pictures of his invoices via text, that's fine. If it's someone who's putting together a PDF invoice using QuickBooks, we can read that. If it's someone who's putting together a pay application, an application for payment, like an actual AIA document, we can read that as well. So no matter where you are, no matter what kind of bills you receive from your subs or vendors, we've really made a big effort to make sure that our software is super flexible and to read it and extract data for you to save you a bunch of time and to save your staff time and money as well.
It's fantastic, Frank. I literally just had a client who's using a software that he purchased without my even knowledge tell me the other day, Tanya, I don't think that they understand how things work in the real world, and I think that's so commendable that you guys are looking back and saying, okay, like you said, we can either try to push folks, we can push round pegs through square holes and we'll try to make that happen, or we can look at it and say, no, what's really happening? And let's find a way to build software that can accommodate for that. So again, kudos to you guys. Scott, walk us through, what is your workflow? How do you guys actually use Adaptive in your office? I'd love to hear that.
So we being in Austin, I guess, we feel like we were relatively ahead of the curve in terms of technology, right? We adopted Dropbox very early on and started scanning our invoices and just for document management purposes. So we had some of the building blocks of this already set up, but in the end, we are still pushing paper around, right? You got to get your stack of invoices on that project to your PM for them to review and approve, and they make some notes and hold this and don't do that and so on, and then it goes back to our bookkeeper here in the office, and then she deciphers those and then gets them into QuickBooks, right? And then there's typos, wrong cost code, wrong job, right? That's probably what's most likely to happen is you autofill in QuickBooks, and next thing you know, somebody else has been billed for something they didn't do, right? And so having a lot of these steps where each one of those steps is the point where an error can happen, right? Much less, like you point out, somebody takes it home, you lose the invoice, right? Where is that data? If I want to find that invoice 3 months from now, where is it, right? And so to be able to get these things digitized and in the system from day one has, even though we had a digitally based system, right, it still involved the same path as pushing around a piece of paper. And so being able to have it cut right through that and just get to what we need has really been a game changer. And I don't like using terms like that, but I think it's appropriate here because that savings is real. So our bookkeeper here was full time, but she just went to go to UT School of Architecture. So she's going to be working for us while she's doing that, but obviously her time is very limited. So we actually were already actively tracking time as it related to bookkeeping, and we were able to get very accurate numbers here in terms of the cost savings. So it really is material.
That's amazing. What a great story for you guys to be able to share, Frank and Matt.
Yeah, Scott's been a great customer to kind of, Scott, we really do, and I say this truly, we really try to we spend a lot of time with every single customer. If you go on our platform and you use the kind of chat feature to get support on something you're confused about, it's going to be me or Matt or our CTO who's going to be answering your questions. You'll have our phone number. You'll be able to email us directly. You always get help if you need it. And as a result, I think our customers have developed, the correct idea that we're extremely open to feedback in terms of what's working, what's not working, what features they kind of not really use so much, what do they love, what do they want to see us build, and why. And I think Scott has been an incredible value add, especially in that capacity. Scott, as you can probably tell from this interview, is certainly not shy about sharing his opinions. And in terms of his opinions about our software, Scott has been an incredible asset to have, because whenever something, doesn't work exactly as he thought it should, or whenever he wants to see a piece of, software built that we currently don't have, or he sees something else in some aspect of his business that he wants to see replicated in our software because it make his life easier, he lets us know and we build it. I mean, I don't know, Scott, if you have the same experience, but we kind of build what our customers ask us to build. We kind of build the spec.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Again, built for builders, right? And that is really what's extraordinary, considering how many of us there are, right? Small builders are there's millions of us here in the country, but yet we've been having that square peg round hole problem with accounting. I think since QuickBooks was around, right? I probably have my core, business file is probably 20 years old,
Yes.
So it's just really nice to see us sort of modernized in this way, and I think the ability to do things like this is again something that builders aren't expecting, right? We're so used to paper checks and holding checks. In fact, I remember telling the guys, like, sometimes we want to hold a check, right? And we want them to come in, and we need to either there's a relationship aspect to that, and sometimes that's positive and sometimes that's negative, but just the act of payment, like, it doesn't matter to me whether I can pay someone in 20 seconds or not. It's why and how, and there's an extra layer there that is specific to our industry, right?
Yeah.
So I just like that they're listening to us and really trying to meet our needs rather than come up with a clever way to do some banking,
I think, Frank and Matt, one of the things that's impressive is you guys aren't just building the software, but you're changing the narrative around construction and the adoption of technology, because it's exactly what you said. I don't think that it's construction companies don't want to adopt technology. I think they want to all the time. It's that they haven't found the folks that are building the technology that's right for them. And that's what you guys have set out to do and what you are doing. And I really appreciate you guys being here on our podcast today. If folks want to find out more about Adaptive, where should they go to find out more?
You can visit us at our website, www.adaptive.build. You can also email me or Matt directly. Matt's email address, I'll just give it out, is matt@adaptive.build. And my email address is francisco@adaptive.build. So yeah, email us directly, always around, happy to talk to anyone. Really eager to learn about you and your business.
Love it. Thank you guys so much.
I would just say, Tanya, it's .build, not .bill, because we've been talking a lot about bills today, so can't get it confused.
BUILD.
Yes, correct. There we go.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Scott. It was a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you, and just really appreciate all of the feedback today on Adaptive. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see where you guys go. And I know that we're going to definitely be doing some work with you guys. So I really appreciate you guys being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Construction Junction, brought to you by Adaptive. For more information on the junction between accounting and construction, please email hello@theprofitconstructors.com.